It is from hard. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:15. We are going to have a work session tonight with Milt Dennison to go over the superintendent search application screening materials. So Milt, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
We will let you train us. Take it away.
Okay, before we start the train, let me just give you some updates on the search. Typically, you would be trained tonight and start reviewing applications on Friday. But position doesn't close till Monday. So because of the calendar, we decided to go ahead and do the training. You'll have to remember everything you learned tonight. We have it recorded if you need a refresher as we get closer. So the plan, if you remember the calendar, Jennifer should have you online with applications on April 24th. So that'd be Wednesday, week from today.
And I know in a previous meeting, it was said that once we went through this training, we'd have access to start looking, but I don't, based on her email, that didn't sound
I
to
don't
me the
think it's
case.
gonna work for.
Okay,
Yeah. So that's how it'll work out, and we'll be fine.
okay,
Search update, as typical, we're seeing a lot of activity this last week. This guy and I have been walking the streets looking for candidates. And I can tell you this, you're not gonna have a huge number. I'm prediction is 15, could be higher. But I'm also predicting you're gonna have a very strong group. And your decisions to make choices, it's gonna be difficult, just good. So I've been impressed with who Jeremy's helped out with contacting some people, so it'll be a good group. In terms of out of state, just looking at the applications today, you have one from Alaska, one from Indiana. The rest are what should be Oregon, so at this point, but that could change. So when we meet next week, after 2 weeks after you finish your screening, then we'll have a better idea of the quality of how you feel about it. So let's go ahead and start the training. Very technical, last about 10 minutes, so we'll see.
Okay.
Green button,
Wait. It should be just arrows, the arrow over arrows.
narrow down. Different than my television. visual. Narrow down, okay. You're pointing
Let me try arrow.
right up. Good.
there we go.
Okay, so what we're talking about is the electronic flyer, which you've seen has gone out to candidates who are interested. Spend a few minutes on the search calendar just to confirm where we want to be. Talk about confidentiality. Short couple slides on do's and don'ts. If you haven't screened applicants, it'll give you some ideas of what you should look for. Then we'll run through what you should expect to see in the application packet. And then we'll talk about ratings. And then you will get to know Revelous very well. There's one requirement, Revelous. If you have trouble with Revelous, you don't call me. You call Jennifer at OSBA. Because, I'm not a big Revelous knowledge base at all. So that's kind of what we'll do. Am I doing this or you do? You can do it too. There we go. So here we are tonight. All goes as planned. You'll have access to applications on the 24th. And then possibly we'd like those all to be screened and your ratings submitted by midnight 29th. My experience, depending on how fast a reader you are, it takes usually 10 to 15 minutes per application. So once we know how many, we estimate the time to do that. Unlike the old days when we sit around with applicants and folders, pass them around, until we all got through all of them. It's all online now. You do it at your own
So,
pace.
no, can we assume that OSB is doing some kind of pre-screen? I mean, obviously, we want to make sure everybody's applying is qualifying as far as like
Pre-screening we do.
license, et cetera.
We pre-screen a license. We have an initial background check. It's a more extensive background check, criminal background check when they become finalists. They'll screen for completion of applications. And they'll screen for veterans preference. So in Oregon, if you're a vet and you use your veterans preference, when OSB does a rating, you get a little bump in the ratings. My experience rarely does it move you into a different category than you were originally placed in, but they do with that bump as a veteran.
So it's really just they're screening for a license and that they've completed the background or the application.
Yeah.
Background.
They'll do initial one.
Okay. So I mean, we want to give these very good consideration as we're reading them.
Yeah, you'll see every applicant, unlike other places. You won't just see every applicant. Now, if we end up with 40, we may look at the dates, but I'm still thinking 12 to 15. Okay, then I come back on the 1st at 4 p.m. At that time, Jennifer will prepare a summary of your ratings. We'll talk more about that as we get through the slides. So I'll have the rating sheets, so you'll see how, not by name, but by A, B, C, D, E board member, how you rated candidates. And there'll be a composite rating. Now, that doesn't mean that's who you're going to choose for initial interviews. But you usually see a break line somewhere. You go down the candidate list and you'll see scores might drop from 85 to 45. That might tell you something about who you should set up. So we'll see how it turns out. Now, one thing, I'll wait for that. Tell myself. On the 1st, we'll develop the interview schedule. I will start contacting candidates to get them plugged in. I will find out if they're can be here in person or if they have to be on Zoom. And so we'll know all of that before we get into those interviews. Now, interview questions. I don't know if you've had questions you've used previously that you want to go from. Usually with the semifinalist interviews, it's a pretty standard set of questions that you ask each candidate out of fairness. But with opportunities, if you need to have them clarify something, you want to give them 10, 15 minutes for their own questions. So I don't know if you have make them interview questions. What I can do, I can send you interview questions from previous searches. Plus, I have a bank of interview questions of about 500. We don't have time to go through that.
I was gonna say, a bank of 500 probably isn't useful, but if you have some recent ones
Yeah.
that you think are decent.
Yeah.
I think those would be really useful, and then just so we understand like how many we should be asking, and
Yeah,
it gives us a little bit of time. If we can have access to those before May 1st, it'd be great so that we can kind of comb over those and understand what we might want to ask.
District name, I can send those out to you
Okay,
next couple of days.
yeah, and then how many questions do we want to ask?
Usually 10 to 11.
Okay,
And it's that'll be the May 1st, that's where we're developing which questions we're gonna be.
That's where you'll find those.
we'll finalize them, so I feel like we need to see them before that, or like have
Now, the
you
other
had
decision-
conversation or thought about it prior to that.
Another decision you need to make is typically boards will have me send the candidates interview questions. So that's going to be different with an in-person, and so I'm sending them the questions about 15 minutes before the interview. Doesn't give them time to do a lot of research, but it allows them to keep track of what's going on,
Okay,
and that's an option.
That's how I got the job. I had them in advance.
Yeah, that's
I'm not trying to trick people, I want them to give me a full and complete answer. I don't want them to be like, go home later and be like, oh my gosh, totally forgot, I had all this experience that I didn't come prepared to discuss. So I mean, I kind of like when people have them in advance and have some thought to
I'll
prepare.
think about that. We'll make that.
Yeah, I feel like that's the new way of doing things now. I just sent interview questions to coaches today for interviews tomorrow and I like it just because.
Yeah.
I don't want someone to bomb. I'm not looking for a gotcha moment of bombing in an
Right.
interview because that doesn't tell me anything about that person overall.
Just to clarify, interview questions on May 1st are for the
Semi-final.
semi-finalists. They are not the questions for the finalists.
Correct.
Finalist interviews are usually more free flowing. You can build your questions based on what you learn about the candidate.
Mhm.
We give them a little more time to interact with you. And so it's not near as structured as your initial interviews.
That's what I suppose, but I just want to be sure.
Uh, I'll go ahead and plant this seed. I'm confused these things. But you may find when we gather on the 1st, that there's a fairly small group of candidates that you're interested. We at least talk about moving forward to the final stage. But let's worry about that when we get there. We have a neighboring district who's doing a search. Yeah. We'll skip the semifinal stage. We're trying to get low ups. We're not gonna make it. They're trying. Interviews are all in executive session. May 6th and 7th, and the 6th. For sure, the 7th, depending on the number of interviews you're going to conduct, or if we have a candidate who's at a board meeting at 6th. And then, finalist interviews right now are scheduled for the 13th.
Yeah, just this question, do we have a contingency if like for some reason we don't get very many candidates that we extend the period?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not extending, if you say we're gonna get 10, 15, that's I think a great number, but.
Yeah,
if we
2
get
years
three,
ago,
that's not a great.
2 years ago, in Dayton. We only had about 13, of course, we're not early in the process anymore. So they extended 2 weeks and ended up with 27.
Okay.
My guess is you're not gonna need to do it.
Okay,
I mean, I think we honestly could do that as a board if we decide when we get the chance to screen them that we don't feel like we are where we need to be. I think that's a decision we're allowed to.
yeah, to me, it would just be, if we have a low number, you know, sub 5 or special 8 or something.
Well, it's like your calendar and mine, but it can happen.
My guess is that's not gonna be.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be the problem.
Good,
If it is, do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Confidentiality agreement. Have you received those from Jim?
We have.
just got the email, yes.
You don't need them for tonight because you're not doing an executive session. But, you need them before you start screening this out. Confidentiality is very important. Protects you and protects the candidates. In my many years of experience, I've only had one case where a community member who was on the screening team violated the confidentiality agreement. Left the meeting where semifinalists were selected and went down the newspaper and said, hey, we have semifinalists. We didn't last long, so. But it's a rarity that people violate that, so it's important.
Yeah, that would be a very quick way to screw up our
Yeah, it would.
hiring process.
We'll come back to this one. The key thing here is, hopefully Jennifer sent the marketing thing to you. We've confirmed that. The key-
We received, I'm sure you guys did too. It's like a pretty long document and then we got like do's and don'ts with that confidentiality agreement. Everybody get that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, this is the marketing brochure. It goes out to candidates.
Oh, okay, different from what she emailed.
Yeah,
us.
I don't know if these.
I think she sent that with it. It was a separate document.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
4 P.
Yeah, the key part there is to go back and look at the qualities and qualifications that you adopted last month.
Yeah.
And keep those in mind as you screen, as you pick your screen. The rest of the document is
I
too late
can,
to read about.
I can also resend that qualities and qualifications list that came when we
That'd be
created a
perfect,
meeting
Chrissy.
to them before they meet.
It'd be perfect. So just so you have that when you start to screen. Okay. So just a few do's and don'ts, read every application carefully, open-minded. I do look for matches with your qualities and qualifications. Look for current letters of reference. Now, it's somewhat tricky when we're running a confidential search. So we've talked with candidates about the best ways to get reference letters without jeopardizing their confidentiality, so.
I've had a couple indicate to me that they might be stuck on two right now. And I said, I won't share that with the board chair and, they're stuck for the right reason. So.
And I've had those conversations too. We asked for three, but if you get two, should be okay. What you know about reference letters, you regularly ask you. In the situation of this work.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's, in my opinion, it's okay. I mean, we're keeping it confidential for a reason and we want them to have that ability and so.
So.
Can't really lie to your current supervisor.
The typical don'ts, I'm not gonna read through those, you guys have been around long enough. I don't see anything there that is unusual. Don't build excuses for people who don't meet the requirements. Don't eliminate candidates who may be overqualified. Don't make that assumption that they're not a good match for you. If they make more money in addition to working in now, they have a reason to apply for sure. Don't dismiss someone who's up in the moment. Boards are always concerned, and I'm sure you've been through it too, is we're going through all this process. We're gonna have to do it again.
Sure.
And nationwide, the average life of superintendents. Average superintendent's life as a superintendent, 3.6 years. So that includes those who've been there for 20 and those who've been there for 2 months.
Yeah.
Again, out of state, it's a bit of a difficult transition, but at this point, don't eliminate them just because of where they live. They don't meet the qualities and qualifications. And then as you talk about candidates, we can deal with them, the out of state. Again, at this stage, no contact candidates for the references. And don't share information about candidates you might know personally until they become finalists. Stop me if you have any questions. Now,
So
Jennifer-
Mill, you can recuse yourself. And that, I saw the last one, that means don't even look at the file,
That's right.
back up the slide, that's
See if I can back
confusing
up.
to me.
I think it said if you
Well, if you feel you
There.
cannot be fair, don't
If
read
you
the
can't
file.
be fair,
Yeah.
then instead of rating the candidate, maybe just choose to let your other board members rate that candidate.
That's
Right, so. Let me read that one more time.
if your spouse applied for the job.
Hard for you.
Well, no, that's an obvious one, that's an obvious one, but I'm.
Yeah, I think it'd be unusual, Hans, but
So if you see something that strikes you. For whatever reason. Don't read the file, that's what I'm reading.
No, it says.
No, read the file. If you can't rate them fairly.
Well, that's what I mean, you're gonna be struck initially in the forehead with,
Well, the
That's not
bias
gonna
would
be
be
fair.
like, oh, this is my good friend who applied.
these are gonna be people you know.
Yeah, like,
No,
yeah, no.
well, yeah, sure, that's an obvious one.
That's where.
If you're
That's tough.
confused, you can reach out to me or you could reach out to.
Well, that
Mel.
was my next question.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're scanning all these things individually, personally, right? We're backing up a bit. And we're ranking them. We do that individually.
Individually.
There's no communication between us about how we're
Not
gonna
at
rank
that
these
stage,
things.
Not at that stage.
but if you're confused just on like the process or you're like, this is my situation. What am I supposed to do? You can of course reach out to me or you can reach out to Mel.
And you'll have plenty of time to interact about candidates. As we go forward.
Yeah,
Okay, I was just, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty obvious, but I just wanted to, okay,
Good question.
Yeah.
Jennifer sent out, should have received a 5 or 6 page manual on bias. OSBA is pretty, take that pretty seriously, so, I would encourage you before you start your application review, just read through that. It's all common sense in terms of not letting your biases affect your review of the application. So what you'll see, when you open up an application, not necessarily in this order, but you'll have a resume. That's a requirement. You should have an interest letter. And I put a lot of weight in those, how they express themselves. And typically they'll say, this is why I'm going to be true. And so read those pretty carefully. Some are pretty short and brief, tell a whole lot, but you see those when they come through. And you'll see, you'll have some samples of letter of reference. Again, in this case, it could be 2 or 3. Again, remember, those are coming from fans. Now here's the rating sheet. Now this you can use. So it's a way for you to take each of the candidates that you're reviewing, put some of the demographic data on there, and then as you read the application, then you go back and no, yes, in those other areas. Now, some people rather just take them notes, and that's fine too. We don't collect these. Well, we'd like you to turn them into her, Christine, so she can throw those, or you can do it yourself, but we don't collect them. Your use only.
Can I provide a little commentary on that
Sure.
experience?
Let me go back or.
Yeah. And I'll be very quick. You know, there was much ballyhoo about a decade ago about traditional and non-traditional candidates for the superintendency. A non-traditional one would be a corporate CEO who says you ought to run schools like a business and I can do that, and they come into play. The traditional candidates, of which I'm like, I think both of us are exactly identical. You start as a teacher, coach, you work your way up to a building assistant principal, then you go to central office, then you get your first superintendency. That's this kind of pathway. That is the traditional candidate. And different people put different weights on whether or not a candidate has principal experience. How could you lead a group of principals if you've never walked in their shoes? That's where it gets a little, you can make a case one way or another, but your traditional pathway is teacher, coach, assistant principal, central office. And then you see all variations of that. So I thought that might be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's important. And we don't see as many non-traditional candidates now as we used to.
For sure.
Portland
It
hired
is
an
less.
Army general. Matthew Crawford. So he came back and got his degree of certification. That was his background. So this is the what you'll get from Jennifer on the day your screening will start. And she'll have more explanation for you on that. But you'll have a right-hand part of the screen, and that will get you into your candidate list. You just click on each one as you review, and the whole application will be available for you to take. Part of that process, you'll be asked to rank. At the end of your review, we ask that you rank your top 10. One being your first choice. Work it down to 10. Now, sometimes you get to 8 or 9 and say, no way. Well, for the system to work, make it a way. Put my name in if you want. So.
Right in.
So literally, we're just ranking 1 through 10. We're not putting scores on them.
Not at this point.
No, that's my time. Gotcha. Okay.
And that'll be the ranking sheet will be the start of our discussion.
Okay.
Got it.
That makes more sense.
And that's where you need to get very open in terms of if you get somebody number 2 and everybody else at number 10, what caused the discrepancy, these are discussions that we need to
And
have.
the purpose of this is to figure out who our semifinalists are too.
So,
And see, if it's just a 1 through 10 ranking, then I almost feel like it is useful to use some of the sheets that you provided to keep track, because then when you come to the meeting, if you're like, this is my number 2, and I'm like, I don't know, that person was like a 7 for me, then I can at least go back and see like, why did they
You're
not
not
stand
gonna
out?
remember.
Yeah,
that's,
that much.
yeah, when you, if we have 15,
Yeah, you're gonna
we're
want.
gonna
to
lose track of the first couple.
yes,
Yeah, all right,
okay.
yep, good call.
So you'll get familiar with that page. And here's your point where you'll rate your top 10.
Just put it in the comments.
And you can put in comments, a lot of board members too.
No, I mean, are we in the comments? Is that what-
No, it says rating, right, and then
Yeah.
the arrow,
Oh, you're picking the number.
are we?
yeah.
So then you have to go back into each applicant and do this?
Rating.
Cause I'm assuming you're not gonna pick like 1 or 2 before you get through all of them,
Walk through all of them.
and then go
And
back
then
in.
You can go back.
Okay.
I think Jen do not put anything in the feedback column. She specifically
Yeah,
said,
she
don't
did say
put
that.
notes in that.
Yep.
I don't think some people do, but
For
I don't
whatever
think
reason,
ever-
she just said, do not.
Probably because
Yeah.
it goes, maybe it goes back to the candidate.
Yeah, or it goes somewhere it should go.
And you'll
Okay.
never.
That's
probably
where I
never
thought
see
I'd been slide.
Okay,
It might be
And you can write it down.
That's a good point.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, any questions on that? Wrap up the couple of quick things.
I think my only question is, will you be getting us a copy of those like ratings pages?
She doesn't know though. I can send you email copy.
That's,
Did you
whatever.
copy
Yeah, it
yourself?
came in the email that Jen sent.
Jen-
It came in the one
Yeah.
that Jen sent?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, if you can copy
If
yourself.
you need hard copies provided, just reach out.
oh, I can print them, I just didn't go
I
through.
can
the
just leave a
email.
stack.
Perfect, no, if we have it, that's great.
Yeah. Other questions? Christine, what were the other slides we were gonna look at?
You mentioned these. The marketing
Okay,
brochure.
there's. I'll scroll down through that one a little bit.
The 4 or 5 days that we have for screening, does that all feel reasonable for you guys, or you have time during that time period?
Next week is Friday, right?
24th to the 29th.
Oh, yeah, that should be fine.
Can you
To
scroll
review
down,
however many
scroll to
candidates.
the bottom of that? For sure.
I think she said typically they only get like two days, so that's more than
Well,
normal.
that's good.
Unfortunately.
So again, there's another place where the Q and Qs show up, but I think if Christine will send you the form that you approve, it'll be easier to look through.
And so the tendency email does it, this first set. Kind of goes in and it's all collated, fancy, I'm sure, right? And then it kind of clumps them, your general feeling is it. Here's 5 that you guys kind of rose to the top and here's 4 that.
Yeah.
Thumbs down, so then we hash it out. To say, yeah, we all agree to those
Correct.
3, 4.
And that was to
Okay, and then that
So,
gets you sent. Okay.
So we'll start our meeting with you seeing the rating sheet.
Yeah,
Perfect. And then you can decide how you want to deal with that. If there's an obvious.
Yeah.
3, 4,
Yeah.
5, talk about those and see if they're keepers.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Then we decide from there how many we're going to interview for the semifinals.
Exactly.
Okay.
Are we looking for a specific number for the semi, or is it just whatever we want?
I can just tell you typically it's 4 to 6,
Or-
but it's all up to you. I wouldn't recommend 15. We
A lot to be through.
get to know each other too
I'd like to interview everyone.
well. Other questions? But again, you have my contact information.
Yep.
And Revel's questions to Jen. And then, the bias, you don't need to show that, they've got that. The bias guidelines. There it is, yeah,
Yep.
that should be your copy.
Okay,
And just
Right.
remember that she won't send you your Revelis login until you get your confirmation.
Yeah.
And so just
I get it in as soon as you can,
Mine's already in.
Yeah.
as soon as you can.
If you can
Get it
digitally
to
sign
me
it.
before.
You're like-
And again, if you want a packet of all the hard copy, all the materials hard copy, just shoot me an email.
Christine, are you going to work directly with Krista to get this piece done? The Revelis and the confidentiality training?
Yes, she's gonna watch the video.
And don't hesitate to ever make contact with me for the
First.
the video with her.
May 6th.
That's helpful.
That's it.
What's your background?
Oh, yeah.
Christine?
Hold on, are we done? Cause I have to do text.
Yeah. I think we're finished up. Are we, any other
Okay.
questions? Do you guys have any other questions that?
Oh, I just want the date for, just so I got a board's selection of semifinalists, May first,
We are coming together for executive session on May first
May first.
at 4 o'clock.
Hans, it's the calendar invites I sent out to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's when we will be discussing.
Got them all. Okay, just,
And we actually just stay in executive session throughout the process.
Right. All right, so if there's something else, we'll go ahead and wrap up this meeting, conclude it so that we can switch over to our regular board meeting at 7 o'clock. Thank you for being here, Mel.
I'm gonna take it around.
Love it.
What your board, meeting, see if I can improve my board.
This is gonna be exciting for you.
We are,
So, yeah.
our winter athlete.